Hello, everyone. My name is Teddy Welch, and I'm so thrilled to introduce Kathie Sarachild. Born in 1943, Kathie has been immersed in liberation movements for nearly her entire life. She started working in voter registration activism in Mississippi during 1964's Freedom Summer, and soon thereafter, Kathie was at the forefront of the feminist movement when she joined both the Redstockings and the New York Radical Women, protesting for women's liberation everywhere, including the Miss America pageant, and fighting for safe and secure access to abortion. Kathie was the founder of the Redstockings Women's Liberation Archives for Action, a group for which she still remains the director. Back in the 1960s, Kathie coined the slogan, "Sisterhood is powerful," during the Jeanette Rankin Brigade. I could not agree more. I am so inspired by the work of Kathie Sarachild and the other honorees here this evening, and I hope the other young activists here and I will make them proud as the next generation of badass radicals. Thank you.
And using birth control, but with abortion as a backup, you could, to get a little crass, you could enjoy sex more if you didn't have to worry about getting pregnant. I always had a belief and an understanding that the country wasn't living up to its ideals of democracy, equality, justice for all. One reason the country wasn't living up to its ideals was that the information wasn't getting out to people, or that somehow people weren't hearing things that needed to be heard. The idea of a collective movement for women is something that came out of the civil rights movement, really. And the idea of the speak out, the abortion speak out, also came from that. So all the groups got together to picket this reform hearing to call for repeal instead of reform. But someone in Redstockings, because Redstockings had already formed then out of New York Radical Women, said, listen, this is an almost all male panel. They're all men. There were something like 12 men and a nun. Why don't we bring our consciousness raising ideas to this hearing and demand that women testify as the real experts on abortion as we call for repeal? And so we decided that we would go in, kind of interrupt the hearing and demand that we testify as the real experts on abortion about the impact that these abortion laws were having on our lives. I had been chosen this time by lot to lead off this disruption of the hearing. So I'm always nervous with these disruptions. For some reason, even though I was arrested in Mississippi, I was afraid of getting arrested and not showing up at work the next day, but I was committed to doing it. We were committed to action. I was afraid, but I also wanted to scare them, to tell you the truth, scare them into doing something. I sat there listening to these guys talking, and they were talking about, well, let's make it okay to have an abortion if a woman has had 4 children. I remember that one really teed me off. And that's when I got up and I said, let's hear from the real experts, And I began talking about my life. 2 of the women, one of whom had had an abortion, an illegal abortion, and the other who had been unable to get an abortion and given a child up for adoption, began to testify before the TV cameras. The New York Times had a big coverage of it with a great shot outside the hearing of women kind of shouting at policemen who had barred the door to get back in. So it was really good coverage. We have to revive the women's liberation movement to have a strong and winning strategy for abortion.